Mark Turner never liked late evenings, but this one felt heavier than usual. The air was cold, the clouds were thick, and the streetlights flickered like they were too tired to shine. He walked alone through the quiet neighborhood, carrying a small bag of old clothes he no longer needed. His mother always told him, if you don't need something, give it to someone who does. So he came to the old metal donation bin near the closed supermarket. The bin stood under a broken lamp, making the spot look darker than the rest of the street. Mark stopped beside it, rubbing his arms for warmth. He worked long hours and barely slept these days. Maybe that was why he felt like someone was watching him, though the street was empty. The only sound was the soft hum of distant cars and the slow drip of water from the roof. Above. He opened the flap of the donation bin. It creaked loudly, almost like it was complaining about being disturbed at night. Mark laughed a little to himself and dropped the bag inside. The clothes made a soft thud as they hit the bottom. He turned to leave. He was already imagining a warm shower and a quiet night. But then, thump, he froze. The sound came from inside the bin. Mark blinked and listened harder. Maybe the bag had slid to the side? Maybe it had hit another donation. That had to be the reason. He shook his head and stepped away. Scrape. The noise came again, this time unmistakable. Something inside was moving. Mark's heart kicked against his ribs. He leaned a little closer, staring at the metal bin. It was old, scratched, and covered with stickers from past charity drives. The flap was closed now. Nothing looked strange. But something inside had definitely moved. He swallowed, probably a cat. He whispered to himself, though even he didn't believe it. He took another step back. Then, through the cold air, through the metal walls of the bin, he heard it. A soft voice. A human voice. A whisper. Every hair on his body stood up. He stumbled backward so fast he almost tripped. He looked around the street, searching for anyone who might be hiding nearby. No one. The grocery store behind him was closed. The windows dark. The houses across the street were quiet. Curtains closed. Cars parked. No movement anywhere. But someone or something inside the donation bin had whispered his name. This is not real, he thought. I'm tired. I'm imagining things. But fear had already climbed into his throat and made it hard to breathe. He turned and walked quickly away from the bin. His footsteps echoed on the empty street. He kept glancing back, expecting the bin to move or open. It didn't. It stood there silently, like any normal donation bin. But he knew something had whispered. By the time he reached his small apartment building, his hands were shaking. He unlocked the door, went inside, and locked it again right away. He leaned against the door and exhaled slowly. Just stress, he told himself. Just a long day. But stress did not whisper your name from inside a metal box. Mark paced around the living room for several minutes. He made tea but didn't drink it. He sat down, stood up, sat down again. His mind kept replaying the moment. The thump, the scrape, the whisper. What if someone was trapped inside? What if someone needed help? He tried to push the thought away, but the idea grew stronger. His mother's voice echoed in his head again. Help when you can. Someone always needs kindness. Mark sighed and rubbed his face. He didn't want to go back. The street was too quiet, the night too dark. But he also couldn't ignore what he heard. Finally, with a frustrated groan, he grabbed his coat again. Fine, he muttered. I'll check. If there's nothing there, I'll come home and forget all of this. He stepped outside. The air felt colder now, sharper. The walk back to the donation bin felt slower, heavier. Each step felt like a step toward something dangerous. When he reached the bin, he stopped a few meters away. His heart thudded. The bin looked the same as before. Still, silent, empty. He walked closer. Then he froze. The flap of the bin was hanging open. And a pale, shivering figure sat beside it, wrapped in his donated clothes. Not human. Not even close. And she was looking right at him. Asterisk mark single quotes S breath caught in his throat. The figure beside the donation bin wasn't just pale. She glowed soft bluish light, like moonlight trapped under her skin. She shivered violently, clutching Mark's old jacket around her. Thin body. The jacket looked huge on her, almost swallowing her small frame. Her eyes were the strangest part. They were silver, reflective like polished metal, and they watched him with a mixture of fear and hope. As if she had been waiting for him, or as if he was the only person she dared trust. Mark took a slow step back. She tried to speak, but only a weak breath came out. Then, with a trembling hand, she reached toward him, not to attack, not to grab, but as if asking for help. Mark looked around again. The street was still empty, still dark. Rain began to fall softly, tiny cold drops tapping against his hair and shoulders. The world should have felt normal, but it didn't. Everything felt off, unreal, like he had stepped into someone else's dream. He forced himself to speak. "Hello, are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman blinked slowly. She tried to stand but nearly fell. Mark rushed forward without thinking and caught her by the arm. Her skin felt strange cool and smooth like river stones, but it also seemed to pulse faintly under his touch, like small waves of energy shifting inside her. She whispered something, but her voice was too weak to understand. Okay, easy," Mark said softly. "Let's get you out of the rain." He guided her toward the old bus stop nearby. The roof was cracked and rusty, but at least it blocked some of the weather. She sat down heavily on the bench, still shivering. Rainwater dripped from the roof. In loud, steady beats. Mark crouched in front of her. "Can you understand me? Are you hurt?" She stared at him, her silver eyes glowing with a faint inner light. After several long seconds, she nodded, very slowly, as if even that small movement cost her strength. "My name," she whispered. The word came out rough, like she wasn't used to speaking. L. Mark repeated. "Okay, I'm Mark." She touched her chest weakly. "Cold, so cold. Air is wrong." She coughed suddenly, a sharp sound, and bent forward. Her whole body shook. Mark felt panic rise. Hey, breathe slowly. Are you sick?" She shook her head. "Not sick. This air, too heavy. I cannot stay long. Stay long?" What did that even mean? Mark swallowed hard. He didn't want to ask the question forming in his mind, but he had to. "Ariel, are you from here?" Her eyes lifted to his. There was no fear in them now, only sadness, deep and old. "No," she whispered. "Not this world." Mark's heart skipped a beat. He stared at her, waiting for her to laugh or explain. But she didn't. She only sat there, trembling her silver eyes too honest to be lying. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the distant sound of an engine echoed across the street. A low, humming, unnatural sound. Ariel instantly stiffened. Her glowing skin dimmed, as if she was trying to hide her light. "No," she whispered. "They followed. They come." Mark turned toward the street. A long, dark vehicle, something between a van and a machine he'd never seen before, rolled slowly past the corner. Its headlights were off. It moved silently, too silently, like it wasn't meant for normal roads. A strange fear settled in Mark's stomach. "Who?" he asked. "Who's coming?" Ariel looked at him with pure terror. "Collectors," she said. "Hunters of my kind. They take us. Use us. Sell us." She grabbed his sleeve, her grip surprisingly strong. "They cannot find me, Mark. If they do, they take you too." Mark's chest tightened. He wasn't brave. Not in any special way. He was just a tired man who had dropped off old clothes. Yet here he was, crouching next to a scared alien woman, while a strange vehicle searched for her. He looked at Ariel weak. Shaking, alone. Something inside him made the choice before he even realized he'd made it. "Come on," he whispered. "We have to move." He helped her stand again. She leaned heavily on him, her body trembling with every step. They slipped out from behind the bus stop and into the darker side street, behind the grocery store. As they moved deeper into the shadows, the dark vehicle stopped near the donation bin. Its doors opened with a hiss. Strange figures in dark armor stepped out. Ariel squeezed Mark's hand, her voice barely a breath. "They will not stop until they have me." And Mark knew then. His life had just changed forever. Mark pushed Ariel deeper into the narrow back alley behind the store, trying to stay hidden between the tall trash bins and cracked brick walls. Rain dripped from metal gutters, tapping like restless fingers, but even that sound felt too loud. In the silence that followed, Ariel leaned heavily against him. Every step seemed harder for her. Her breathing had changed too. It was now short and painful, like each breath tasted wrong in her lungs. Mark glanced back toward the street. The dark vehicle had stopped in front of the donation bin. Its surface didn't reflect light like a normal car. Instead, it seemed to swallow it, as if darkness clung to the metal by choice. The doors opened with a slow hissing sound, and 3 figures stepped out, dressed in black armor that looked grown rather than built. Smooth, curved plates covered their bodies, glowing faintly with blue lines. Ariel's grip tightened on Mark's sleeve. "That armor, I know it," she whispered. "Collectors wear living suits. They can smell energy, my energy." "Smell it?" Mark whispered back. "Yes, they will track it until they find it." Mark's heart hammered painfully. He didn't want to believe any of this. He didn't want to believe aliens, hunters, or living armor were real. But the fear in Ariel's voice, raw, shaking, honest, forced him to accept the truth. One of the collectors stepped closer to the donation bin. He placed a small device on the metal surface. It lit up with swirling symbols that Mark couldn't read. "It's a tracker," Ariel whispered. "They are searching for where I fell." Mark watched as the symbols brightened. The collector hissed something in a language that sounded like scraping stone. Another collector opened the flap of the bin and peered inside. "He knows I escaped," Ariel said. "They will be angry." Suddenly, the device flashed red. The collector turned sharply, scanning the street with a visor that glowed bright blue. He pointed toward the alley. "They feel the trace," Ariel breathed. "We must move." Mark swallowed his fear and nodded. "Come on." Quietly, he guided her down the alleyway, his arms steady around her shoulders. They passed puddles reflecting dim streetlights, old crates, and rusted pipes. Each sound there. Footsteps, her breathing, the far-off engine hum felt like it echoed too loudly. Behind them, heavy boots touched the ground. The collectors had started walking. A strange, vibrating click filled the air, a sound not meant for human ears. Ariel winced, pressing her hands over her ears. "What is that?" Mark whispered. "They are calling the drone," she said. "Fast, go faster." A low metallic hum answered her warning. Above them, something floated into view, small, round, and black, with rotating blue rings. It scanned the alley with a light beam that sliced through the air like a blade. Mark pulled Ariel behind a dumpster, crouching low. The drone hovered close, so close Mark could feel the air shift around them. Ariel could barely stay silent. Her eyes squeezed shut, her glowing skin dimming as if she were trying to hide her life. Mark placed a finger on her hand. A quiet signal to stay still. The drone paused. For a terrifying moment, Mark was certain it had found them, but then drone turned away and drifted farther down the alley. Ariel released a trembling breath. "They are close, too close." Mark helped her stand again. "There's an old stairway at the end of the alley," he said. "We can hide for a moment." They reached the stairway, broken, rusted, the bottom steps missing, but it formed a small sheltered space beneath it. Mark pulled Ariel inside. The shadows swallowed them, but the rain dripping through cracks still echoed like whispered warnings. Ariel wrapped her arms around herself. "I cannot run much longer," she said. "This air is poison to me," slowly. Mark felt helpless anger rise in him. "There has to be something I can do." "You already help," she whispered, "more than any of my own people ever could." Mark didn't understand that, but he didn't have time to ask. The clicking sound grew louder again. The collectors were only a few meters away. Ariel looked him in the eyes, her silver gaze filled with fear and something even deeper trust. "They will take you," she warned softly. "Humans are not safe once they interfere. If they catch us, you will not return home." Mark stared back at her, heart pounding. He had every reason to run, every reason to leave her and save himself, but he didn't move away. He whispered, "I'm not leaving you." Ariel closed her eyes briefly, almost as if in relief. Then the alley filled with blue light. The collectors' visors burned bright through the rain as they stepped closer, scanning the darkness. "They know we are here," Ariel breathed. Mark clenched his fists. The hunters from the sky had found their trail, but he was ready to fight for her. Asterisk rain fell harder now, splashing against the broken stairway where Mark and Ariel hid. The narrow space smelled of rust and wet concrete, and every drop of water felt like a ticking clock counting down to their discovery. Ariel pressed her back against the wall, her breathing uneven. Each breath looked painful, like she was pulling in air that her body didn't want. Mark watched the glowing blue light sweep across the alley as the collectors moved closer. Their armor made no sound, not even footsteps, only that eerie clicking noise that rattled in Mark's bones. He held his breath, hands shaking. Ariel whispered weakly, "They feel energy, even fear. You must stay calm." "How?" Mark whispered back. "They're hunting you, and they're hunting me now too." She looked at him with tired silver eyes. "I am sorry, Mark Turner. You did not ask for this." "No," Mark said quietly, "but I'm not running away." Before Ariel could answer, a blue scanning beam cut across the stairway. Mark reacted instantly, pulling Ariel deeper into the shadows and pressing her against his chest to shield her light. Her skin glowed faintly, but he covered as much of her as possible. The beam passed just inches above his head. Ariel's trembling fingers gripped his shirt, her entire body shaking as a sharp cough escaped her. She tried to hold it in, but the sound slipped through the cracks of her control. The drone floating above the alley suddenly stopped. Silence fell like the world holding its breath. Then the drone whirred, spinning around toward the sound. They heard. Ariel whispered. There was no time to think. Mark grabbed her hand. "Run!" They shot out from the stairway, feet slamming on wet pavement. Ariel stumbled, nearly falling, but Mark held onto her tightly. Behind them, the collectors shouted, something in their harsh, stone-like language. The drone shrieked and fired a beam of blue light that burned a crack into the brick wall beside them. Mark didn't dare look back. He pulled Ariel through the maze of alleyways past dumpsters, broken crates and old pipes that dripped rusty water. Each corner felt like it might be the last safe turn before the hunters caught them. Ariel's breaths came faster, weaker, harsher. Her body leaned against Mark more and more. "I cannot, much longer." She gasped. Double quotes, "Yes, you can," he said fiercely. "Just a little more. We'll find somewhere safe. You do not understand. My lungs are different. Earth air burns inside. Then we'll fix it," Mark said. "But not if they catch us." Behind them, the drone screeched again, its beam slicing through trash bags and metal cans. Mark felt the heat of it against his back. They raced out of the alley and onto a side street lined with old apartment buildings. Mark's eyes scanned desperately for a place to hide, any door, any open space, but everything was locked and dark. Ariel's legs gave out. She fell to her knees, coughing hard, her glowing skin flickering like a dying star. "No, no, come on," Mark whispered, kneeling beside her. "Ariel, stay with me." She lifted her hand weakly and touched his face. "You should leave me. They want me, not you." Mark shook his head, his voice trembling. "I'm not leaving. I don't care who they want." Her silver eyes gleamed with something soft, maybe gratitude, maybe sorrow, but their moment was crushed by the heavy thud of armored boots. The collectors rounded the corner. Mark's heart crashed into panic. He grabbed Ariel again, pulling her to her feet despite her weakness. "Move," he whispered. "Please, Ariel, move." With the last of her strength, she pushed forward, letting him guide her. They ducked behind a row of parked cars, slipping into the narrow space between the vehicles and the building wall. The collectors spread out across the street. One of them lifted a device shaped like a sphere. It opened like a flower, releasing a soft humming pulse that swept across the ground. Ariel tensed. "It finds heat," she whispered. "It finds life." Mark swallowed hard. His body was shaking from fear, adrenaline, and cold. He held Ariel close, trying to steady both of them. Then as the device hummed louder, a sharp idea struck Mark. He reached up and grabbed a metal pipe lying in the gutter. He tossed it toward the opposite end of the street. It clattered loudly. Instantly, the collectors turned toward the noise. They moved like shadows, silent. Fast, deadly dot. It bought Mark only seconds. But seconds were enough. "This way," he whispered, pulling Ariel toward the back of a building where a door hung half open. They slipped inside just as the drone turned back toward their direction. Inside the building, the dark smell of dust and old wood filled their lungs. The place seemed abandoned, broken furniture, peeling wallpaper, water stains on the ceiling. But to Mark, it was shelter. To Ariel, it was survival. They pressed against the wall, breathing hard as the collectors searched outside. Ariel leaned into Mark, her voice barely a whisper. "If they find us here, they will not show mercy." Mark stared into the darkness, fear sharpening into determination. "Then we make sure they don't." The desperate escape had only begun. The abandoned building was silent except for the soft drip of water somewhere deep inside. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts, and the broken windows let in streaks of pale moonlight. Mark shut the half-broken door behind them and leaned against it, breathing hard. His heart felt ready to burst out of his chest. Ariel collapsed onto a dusty old couch, her body trembling. The glow in her skin faded and returned in uneven waves like a light struggling to stay alive. Mark kneeled beside her quickly. "Ariel, talk to me," he whispered. "Tell me what you need." She shook her head weakly. "Not much time, but safe here for a moment." Mark wasn't sure how long a moment would last. The collectors were still outside, their drones scanning every alley and shadow. But they needed answers. He needed answers. And he needed to understand why. She was here, why the collectors wanted her, and what he could do to save her. He touched her shoulder gently. "Ariel, what's happening to you? Why can't you breathe here?" She opened her eyes slowly, silver irises glowing faintly like moons behind fog. "My world is not like yours," she said. "The air there is light, soft, full of life crystals, but this air is heavy. It burns my chest. My lungs were not made for it." "Then how did you get here?" Mark asked. "Why Earth?" She looked down, sadness filling her expression. "I came through a sky door, but it broke while I traveled." Mark frowned. "A sky door? You mean a portal?" Ariel nodded. "Yes, my people create them to move between safe places. But our world has fallen into war. The collectors capture anyone who tries to escape. They sell us for our energy. To them, we are not people, only light inside." Her voice cracked. She clasped her hands tightly, as if trying to hold herself together. Mark sat beside her, listening. Trying to understand a world so different and yet so painfully similar, where people hunted the weak instead of helping them. Ariel continued, her voice low and soft. A sky door needs a crystal core to stay open. When I ran from the collectors, one of them shot the door as I entered. The core shattered. I fell between worlds, lost. She looked at him, her expression full of quiet pain. I woke inside. Your metal bin. Mark felt a lump form in his throat. The donation bin. He had thrown in old clothes. But she had fallen into it like a child dropped through a broken star. What happened to the crystal core? He asked. Ariel. He touched the side of her ribs, wincing. Inside my pocket when I arrived. But when I crawled out of the bin, I dropped it. Maybe it fell on the ground. Maybe someone took it. Mark stood up fast, adrenaline kicking in again. If we find it, can you fix the sky door? Can you go home? Ariel hesitated. If the crystal is not too broken. Yes, but even then, I would need more strength. The door takes energy from the one who opens it. Energy? Mark asked, worried. Your energy? She gave a small nod. Yes, and I have very little left. Mark ran a hand through his hair. Everything felt impossible. Find a broken alien crystal. Escape armored. Hunters somehow rebuild a portal and do all of this before Ariel's lungs collapsed from Earth's air. But when he looked at her, shivering, barely holding herself together, something inside him hardened. We'll find it, he said. I promise. Ariel looked at him with surprise, as if she had expected fear, not determination. You risk too much, Mark, she said. Your kind is not meant to be part of this war. I don't care, Mark replied. You need help. And I'm the only one here. A faint smile touched her lips, weak but real. Your world has kind people, she whispered. I did not expect that. Before Mark could answer, a loud metallic thud hit the door behind him. The sound echoed through the building like a hammer hitting steel. Ariel's eyes widened. They found us. Mark rushed to the window and peeked outside. Blue lights swept across the street. 2 collectors were approaching the building, moving with slow, certain steps. The drone circled above the roof like a hungry vulture. Mark felt cold fear spread through his chest. We have to go, now. Ariel tried to stand, but her legs trembled. She looked as if she might fall again. I cannot run much more, she whispered. My body is too weak. Mark stepped closer and gently pulled her arm around his shoulders. Then I'll help you. We moved together. Ariel's silver eyes met his. Why do you help so much? She whispered. You owe me nothing. Mark looked at her, this fragile stranger from another world who had fallen into his life by accident, hunted and alone. Because someone should, he said simply. And right now, that someone is me. The door shook again, harder this time. Riell, he gasped. They break it. Mark tightened his grip on her. Then we're leaving before they walk through. And as the collectors closed in, Mark led Ariel deeper into the building's shadows toward the next unknown. Asterisk. The abandoned building groaned as the storm outside grew stronger. Wind pushed through broken windows, making the old wooden boards creak like the bones of something long dead. Mark supported Ariel as they moved deeper into the dark hallway. Her weight pressed heavily against him. Every step she took seemed weaker than the last dot behind them. The front door shuddered again. "Thud, they will force it open," Ariel whispered, her breath barely a thread. "Collectors do not stop." Mark squeezed her hand. "Then we move faster." The hallway stretched ahead like a tunnel into the unknown. Water dripped from broken pipes, echoing softly. Mark's heart beat like a drum, every pulse pushing fear and determination together. Ariel paused, leaning against the wall. Her glow was fading fast, once bright and moon-like, now just a soft shimmer. "Mark," she whispered, "you must leave." They will kill you, or worse. He shook his head sharply. Not happening. You do not know what they do to humans who help my kind. I don't care, Mark said. You're not alone anymore. Before she could answer, the front door finally gave way. Crash! The sound exploded through the building, sending dust into the air. Mark grabbed Ariel and pulled her behind a fallen bookshelf. They crouched low, listening. Heavy, quiet steps entered the building. 3 collectors, tall, armored, smooth black. Helmets glowing with shifting blue symbols walked inside. Their armor made no noise, as if it was alive and breathing. One lifted a scanner, its blue beam slicing through the dust. Ariel clutched Mark's arm. If they see my light, it is over. Mark looked around frantically, searching for any way out. The back exit was far, too far for Ariel in her state. The only chance was to reach the stairs leading to the roof. Can you climb? He whispered. I will try. They slipped from behind the shelf and moved toward the stairwell. Mark supported almost all her weight now. Her legs shook, barely holding. Her breathing grew louder, more painful. Behind them, the collectors turned. Mark froze. The scanner beam swept across the room, heading straight toward them. He pressed Ariel against the wall, pulling her close to hide her glowing skin. Her forehead rested against his shoulder, her breath warm but weak. She trembled, trying to dim her inner light. The beam passed so close it brushed Mark's shoe. Ariel squeezed her eyes shut. Then, the scanner continued in the other direction. Mark exhaled shakily and pulled Ariel up the stairs. The stairway was narrow, dark and unstable. Halfway up, one of the steps cracked under Mark's foot. He caught himself, but the loud snap echoed through the silence. The collectors reacted instantly. The clicking sound rose sharper, faster. They know, Ariel whispered, terrified. Mark pulled her upward, urgency burning in his chest. They reached the final landing just as the drone floated into the stairwell behind them. A bright blue beam shot toward Ariel. Mark didn't think he acted. He shoved her behind him and grabbed a broken metal railing from the floor. With all his strength, he swung it at the drone. The impact sent sparks exploding. The drone spun wildly, crashing into the wall. The collectors roared in their harsh language. Mark grabbed Ariel's arm. Go, up to the roof. They pushed through the door, stepping into the storm. Wind whipped around them, and rain slammed against their skin. The city stretched around them in a blur of lights and shadows. Ariel collapsed onto her knees, coughing violently. Mark knelt beside her. Stay with me, Ariel. We're almost safe. But she shook her head weakly. No, safe is not possible. They will follow until I am gone. We'll make it possible, Mark insisted. Before they could move again, the roof door burst open. A collector stepped out, towering, armored, visor glowing bright blue. Ariel cried out softly, Please, leave him, he is innocent. The collector aimed a weapon, thin, long, glowing, with a cold energy directly at her heart. Mark stood in front of her, spreading his arms. No, you're not taking her. The collector's helmet tilted. It spoke in a voice that sounded like layered metal scraping together. Human involvement detected. Eliminate or capture. Ariel grabbed Mark's wrist. Move, they will kill you. Mark didn't step aside. Instead, he lifted the metal pipe again, though it shook in his hands. You want her, Mark said, voice steady despite fear clawing his throat. You have to go through me. Before the collector could fire, Ariel's body suddenly glowed brighter, much brighter, her remaining energy flaring, like a dying star giving one last burst. She raised her hand weakly toward the storming sky. Blue-white signal shot upward, piercing clouds, lighting the night like lightning. The sky trembled. A swirling tier of light, small but growing, opened above them. Ariel gasped. The sky door. I called it, but I cannot hold it long. The collector stepped back in shock. Mark grabbed Ariel's shoulders. Then we get you through it, now. The rooftop became a battlefield rain, wind-glowing portal, alien hunters closing in. The final confrontation was no longer avoidable. It had already begun. The sky door widened above the rooftop, swirling like a wound cut into the night. Blue light spilled downward, washing over the broken bricks and rain-soaked floor. The wind grew wild, pulling at loose objects, tugging Mark's clothes and hair upward as if the sky itself were breathing in. Ariel knelt beside him, glowing brighter than she had since the moment he found her. But the glow was not strength, it was her life burning fast, like a candle using its last drop of wax. The collectors stepped into the storm of light, armor humming in warning. Their visors flashed symbols Mark couldn't read. The leader lifted his weapon again, pointing straight at Ariel. "Target will be reclaimed," the mechanical voice declared. "Human interference will be terminated." Mark stood in front of Ariel once more, weak metal pipe trembling in his grip. "You're not taking her," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was firm, strong in its own way. The collector took another step forward. Rain rolled down the armor like tears on steel. Ariel reached out and gripped Mark's hand. Her palm was cold and shaking. "Mark, please, move aside. I cannot let them hurt you." He looked back at her. She seemed smaller than before, fragile but glowing with a strange, gentle beauty, like a star that chose kindness over survival. "No," Mark whispered. "I said I wouldn't leave you. Not now. Not ever." Ariel's silver eyes softened, filled with emotion she didn't seem to have words for. The sky door's pull grew stronger. Loose gravel lifted from the ground and flew upward. Even the collectors seemed to struggle now, stabilizing themselves. With magnetic boots, Ariel's glow flickered intensely, and she cried out in pain. "I cannot hold the door. My strength. It is ending." The collector aimed again, ready to fire. Mark acted without thinking. He charged. The wind almost pushed him sideways, but he fought forward with all the stubborn strength inside him. He swung the metal pipe at the collector's weapon. The impact sparked, and the weapon jerked upward, firing harmlessly into the sky. The blast shook the rooftop. The collector turned toward Mark, furious now. A heavy fist came crashing toward him. Mark barely dodged, stumbling on the slippery rooftop. Arielle tried to stand, but her legs gave out again. "Mark, stop, they will kill you." But Mark wasn't listening. He wasn't thinking. Something inside him had snapped, fear replaced with fierce protectiveness. He attacked again, swinging the pipe at the collector's helmet. The blow did almost nothing, the armor barely dented. The collector grabbed the pipe and snapped it in half with one hand. Mark backed up, panting, slipping on the wet ground. The collector lifted its hand to strike. Then the sky door pulled with a sudden violent force. The collector lost balance, sliding toward the glowing tier. Its boots scraped desperately against the rooftop, but the wind was stronger. A second collector grabbed the first, trying to anchor them both, but that only dragged them closer to the swirling portal. Ariel lifted her hand weakly. The glow around her brightened. "No more hunting," she whispered. The sky door sucked the collectors upward with a roar of wind. Their armor screeched against the bricks as they were pulled off the roof, disappearing into the swirling light. Silence followed. Only rain and wind remained. Ariel collapsed completely now, her glow fading fast. Mark caught her, holding her gently. "You did it," he whispered. "You're safe." "No," she whispered. "I am almost gone." Her voice cracked. "The air burns. My light is ending." Mark shook his head fiercely. "Then go through the sky door, go home." She looked up at the swirling opening, her expression torn between longing and sorrow. "I want to live," she said softly. "But if I stay longer, I will die. If I go home, I may live, but the door will close. and I will never return. Mark felt his chest tighten in a way he had never felt before. You have to go, he said, though the words tasted like pain. I don't want to lose you, but I want you to live more. Ariel reached up and touched his cheek. You showed me kindness when I expected none, she whispered. You risked your life for mine. My world has never seen a human like you. Her glow dimmed again. The sky door flickered. She didn't have much time. Ariel slowly placed something in Mark's hand. A small crystal fragment, warm, glowing faintly with blue light. A piece of the sky door core, she said. It still remembers me. Keep it. Mark stared at it, trembling. Ariel. You, Mark Turner, for giving me hope. Then, with the last of her strength, she stood and stepped toward the sky door. The wind lifted her gently. She looked back at him one more time, silver eyes full of light and sadness. I will not forget. You. And then she vanished into the swirling glow. The portal snapped shut with a thunderous echo, leaving only rain and darkness behind. Mark fell to his knees, the crystal still glowing in his hand, warm, alive, beating like a tiny heart. Ariel was gone, but the story between them was far from over.